All right, I want to welcome everybody who's online right now. I want to thank, there's a few of you I could see online. There'll be people joining us hopefully a little later, but I want to start at 7 o'clock exactly. Again, I want to thank you for taking the next 30 minutes out to listen to this webinar, Keep My Home or Walk. I hope to give you pretty much top 10 things you need to know before you decide to keep your home or walk away. I'm not going to try to overwhelm you. Our original webinar was an hour long and had a lot of data, and I know it was overwhelming for a lot of people. So we went ahead and took a lot of the feedback we had and kind of redid it. And so this is what we have now. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to type them, and I will answer them as I go through the presentation. All right? So again, thank you so much, and we're going to go ahead and get started from there. All right. The 10 things you need to know before you do a short seller loan modification. Before we do that, I need to start off with the legal part of it, the disclosure. The content of this presentation is based upon our research, knowledge, and experience. In no way is any information contained hereon to be interpreted as legal or tax advice. To be assured of sound legal advice regards to foreclosure, real estate, bankruptcy, or agency laws, please employ the use of a competent legal or tax professional and/or your real estate broker. Please consult your broker, accountant, and attorney as appropriate for advice specific to your situation. Although every effort is made to keep this presentation current and relevant, it is your responsibility to seek guidance from qualified professionals in order to keep up with rapidly changing market conditions and periodic changes in the law. Bottom line is, we are not attorneys, we are not CPAs. We are giving you information based on the facts as we have them. Things can change, laws can change. We strongly advise that you consult with an expert as far as your legal and tax liabilities. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with the meat and potatoes of this. Who is Pro One Investments? Pro One Investments is a company that specializes in Southern California regarding real estate. It's evolved from mortgages to real estate. We do have a mortgage company here, but right now our specialty is specifically dealing with real estate assets in Southern California. Specifically, they have to do with today's ever-changing market. We try to make this as easy as possible. We pretty much try to give you all your options, present them, give you the facts, and based on your decision, the decision you make, at least it'll be an educated decision as opposed to an emotional one or one that's based off things that aren't real. So we want to give you all the facts. We're not going to steer you in any which way. We're going to give you what the facts are, good, bad, and ugly, and at least now you know what's best for you and your family, and you can go from there. All right, who am I? I am Frank Licea. Those who know me as Paco. I've been a director with the California Association of Realtors since 2005. I currently am not one now. I am a current director with the Inland Valley Association of Realtors. I was a legislative chair from 2000 to 2008. I was part of the Frog Task Force. I'm part of our local candidate review committee, and I've been a broker since 2002. What does this mean to you? Bottom line is I am involved in the community. I'm not only selling or doing the services, but I'm actually involved in the legal aspect. Our association is made up of all the realtors. We're out there fighting for you to make sure laws aren't passed that are going to hurt your bottom line. So that's really important to you. There's a lot of realtors out there who A, aren't realtors, or B, they're not involved. They just want to get paid their commission and move on. I care about our market, I care about our future, and I care about our clients. All right, let's start off with the basic and most important premise. It is not your fault. Quit kicking yourself. Quit saying why. Here, it was a perfect storm. You had the oil prices spiked 3 or 4 years ago. You had the Arab rising the last 2 years ago. You had the stock market volatility plus the financial crisis. What does this equal? Perfect storm. Everybody got hit. Everybody got hit. And that's tough. And that's real tough because a lot of people blame themselves. They think that maybe they did something wrong. Nobody knew the market was going to fall by 50, 60%. If they did, a lot of people would be betting against it. That's not the situation. So don't kick yourself. We're here to point out the facts, take out the emotion out of it. I myself have gone through this 4.5, 5 years ago, so I know exactly about the emotional roller coaster, the legal roller coaster, the financial roller coaster. I've been there, so I can relate to a lot of what's going on. How did we get here? Well, bottom line is the mortgage industry took all their restraints off and said, if you have a social security number and you want to buy a house, you've got it. Stated income, a lot of you have heard of these 80-20 loans. And what that happened was the stock market started packaging these loans and selling them. And so they thought, what's the safest instrument out there? A mortgage. So they assumed that real estate would keep going up, so they kept buying these loans, and therefore there was mortgage companies that make these loans, and there was buyers who were going to buy them using these loans. If somebody told you that you could buy a house with no money down, I mean, as far as you're concerned, what could go wrong? But what happened was it created an artificial market or a bubble, as a lot of people know, that crashed. If you look at, I'm highlighting it right here. If you look at that part right there, this right here, what this is it shows that from 2004 to 2007, there was almost a 40 to 50% jump in everything that was happening. And this is really important because it created an artificial market, and then the bottom fell out. It was twice as much as we had it before. There was a lot of things going on with it, and at the end of the day, it was Wall Street greed. Wall Street really wanted to sell these products, and so they did, and this is what happened. How did they do this? Well, they started coming up with second loans, and the most important thing I want to point out here is this big, huge peak. What this shows right here is that from 2004 to 2008, people, almost 60% of everybody was buying a home with a second loan. So what does this mean? If I wanted to buy a house and they asked for 20 or 15% down, instead of me coming up with the money, I actually got another bank to let me borrow that 20, 15 or 20% to buy the house. Again, not coming with anything. So as you can see, going back to 92, that never happened before. And it created, again, an avalanche. And if you look, the cliff literally just fell. Because at the end, these loans were not sustainable. The market readjusted to what it should have been to begin with. And, well, this is why we're at where we're at. The other thing is Wall Street went blind to the type of loan that was being issued on as far as the rates are concerned. If you look at this right here, this big peak from 04 to 08, what is that? 80% of all loans were made with ARM loans, adjustable rate mortgage. A lot of people are used to 30-year fixed. You get a payment, it never moves, right? Well, that's not what was going on during this time period. What was going on was that they were saying, look, I'll give you a loan fixed for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. The house is going to go up. What's the worst that can happen? And, of course, we know what happened. We fell off the cliff, and now our market is where we're at. So, again, a product was provided by Wall Street that allowed us to buy homes with nothing down. Sooner or later, that was come back and bite us, and it did in a large, large way. So what did this do? When the market crashed, the jobs went away. And when the jobs went away, our unemployment, if you look at California, 12.1%. The way things are calculated, it was closer to 15%. So now you have an industry, a mortgage lending industry that got hit hard. So now they're not lending. Unemployment shot through the roof. Combine these two things, it just was an ugly situation economically. And we're still trying to get out from under it. So where did the jobs go? Well, the two main driving forces in the Inland Empire where we're located was the construction industry and the financial industry. Well, if you look at the losses, we lost over 500,000 jobs in that. You guys all saw the houses being built, all that created jobs, income was coming in, everything was pretty, people were lending money. Well, when those went away, all those people went away also. And that is important to note because in order for us to go back to at least the level that we were used to, we're going to have to, that's going to have to turn around. So when the economy comes back up, you'll see things go up. I've had some questions regarding, well, I hear prices going up 5, 10%. It's artificial. We actually are going to have a little video come out on that in a week on how that's artificial. We won't go into it here, but just know that the economy is still bad. Therefore, houses are still not going to go up how we expect them to. So where does this all rank? I mean, did we do this, and was it the worst thing that ever happened to us in the history of real estate? Absolutely not. Actually, in 1980, there was a 61% drop, and if you look at the screen, you'll notice that this was the largest drop. Then we had a small one in the early 90s, and then we had this one. If you notice, about every 10 to 12 years, you're having this. And what happens is people have short-term memory, they forget, and bam, they do it all over again. We lost 44% of our value in real estate. Back in the 80s, it was 61%. And back in those days, also, the interest rate was really high. You're talking about 18 to 20%. So it's a different situation than it is now because rates right now are still really, really low, which is very important to note because when you're ready to move on to the next house, that's going to be a very, very big factor. Rates history. I kind of put in this just to show you, going back 15 years, where we rank right now. We are low. Rates are really low, 3 to 4%. And I remember in 2002 when I bought my first house, I got a 7.5, and that was excellent interest rate. So right now is a great time with these rates for new buyers that come in. And it's going to be like this for a while. I don't know if they're going to be that low, but what's important to you to note is this, is that the rates will come up when the economy comes up because of inflation and other factors. So keep an eye on that. Foreclosure data. This, I wanted to show how we got hit. And I'm going to highlight, look at that right there. Riverside and San Bernardino account for almost 60% of all foreclosures in our area. LA was 44%. That means over 60% of all the houses sold right now are distress sales, REOs, foreclosures, short sales. This is huge. Things are changing a little bit now because you're having a lot of different people come in. But for many years, this was what's going on. And this is actually what's still going to go on. We have a huge amount of inventory that we call shadow inventory, that houses that are been foreclosed on but have not been sold. And so it's kind of playing with the numbers. Again, that's another day, information for another day, but it's good to know. So what does all this mean? You've gone through, you know how we got here, you know about the mess, you know what's happening, you know that there's things going on that were out of your control, and you are where you're at. So now what? What are your options? Well, I'm going to go through them right now. Good, bad, and ugly, present them, and then go from there. The first one that a lot of people don't know of is the deed in lieu. A deed in lieu of foreclosure is where you, the homeowner, voluntarily transfers the ownership of the property to the owner of your mortgage in exchange for release from your mortgage loan and payment. It's another way of doing a short sale, in a way. Instead of going through the process, though, you literally just, the bank takes it back. Problem is, banks aren't doing deed in lieu that much. They rather do a short sale for legal reasons. And so this is an option, but again, this is kind of like a short sale, but that's the route they're going. Okay, foreclosures. What are my options for foreclosure? Well, we know what a foreclosure is. It's when you're shut out. It's pretty much when a bank takes over your house, says you didn't pay me, goes through the process, takes the house back, and kicks you out. I mean, it sounds ugly, but that's really what it is. And that is what we're going to try to avoid today. If you get anything out of this presentation, please note, you do not want a foreclosure. There are many options we can help you with, but a foreclosure is not one of them. And here's the thing is, banks don't want them either, so just know that. So you want to avoid them at all costs. Now, we hear a lot about loan modifications. Everybody wants a loan modification. Everybody wants to take, wants to work out a plan with a bank. The truth is that most banks don't care to do loan modifications. There's no financial incentive. There's 4 types of loan modifications that you should be aware of. The first one is a straight capitalization loan. This is where pretty much I'm 4 months behind. They take my loan, they add everything I'm falling behind, including penalties and interest, add it to the loan, figure out a new payment, and bam, that's my payment. Problem with that is it creates 2 problems. The first one is you couldn't afford the first payment. So what makes you think you're going to afford the second payment, which is now your payment's even higher? The second thing about that is that it doesn't solve the problem. You couldn't afford income-wise the first mortgage. So the disease, I guess, is still there. It's still there. So this is one that most people do not like, and honestly does not work for most people. The second loan modification option is with term extension. I have a 30-year loan, and they extend it to 40 years. This one does work for a lot of people for the fact that it gives them time to catch things up. So this one isn't a bad one. But now you have a 40-year loan, so you really got to look at that. The third option is a step rate loan modification. This is where they say, okay, I'm going to drop your interest rate to 3% this year. Next year, 4%. The following year, 5%. So they're kind of giving you a step. It does help a lot of people because it drops their payment, but what it does not solve is one major issue. If you're upside down by $200,000 and you drop your payment, that's good enough. You're still upside down by $200,000. So for a lot of people, that's not a viable option. The fourth, reduction rate loan modification, is something that a lot of people like. It's fixed. You know, I reduce your rate for the term of your loan at 3%. There's no stepping. There's no adjustments. It's just final. And if you can afford that, it helps you out a lot. But that's by far the hardest to come by because it locks the bank in. At least if they do a step, they know they're going to be making more money long term. You got to remember, at the end of the day, they're in this to make money. So what's the ugly truth about loan modifications? Banks don't want loan modifications. They don't make money in them, I guess is the bottom line. So that's the first thing. The second thing is 90% of all loan modifications that are actually approved and done still get foreclosed on. So it doesn't help them. Again, it goes back to the initial problem. Income. If I don't solve my income issue, modification a lot of times isn't going to help me. There's no incentive to do them. I already talked about that. And you got to qualify. A lot of people think that the worse your situation is, the better. Not true. If I can't afford my existing mortgage and I want them to modify, I got to prove I can qualify for this modification. So if my income is still an issue, how am I going to qualify for this other one? So a lot of people think, oh, look, I'm unemployed. I haven't worked. I lost my overtime, this, and that. That goes against the loan modification. You don't want that. So remember that. Okay, short sale. So what's the truth about short sales? This is the new reality for many years to come. Bottom line is this. This is going to be the future for quite a few years now. Banks are really set up now to deal with them. There's a ton of properties that still have to go through this process. So this is where really everything's going to be at. Financially also makes sense. Right now we're entering a new window or a new type of short sale called the strategic short sale. The strategic short sale is the following. I qualify, let me rephrase it. I make enough money to afford the mortgage, but I'm upside down by $200,000. I want to do a short sale. Well, for short sales, you got to go through a process. You got to qualify for that process. And a lot of people are just deciding to say, you know what? I can afford it, but I'm not going to deplete everything I have to afford it, and they walk away. So this is strategic short sale as opposed to people who really can't afford it. They're already behind. And a few of you already might be behind, and you don't have that luxury. But a lot of people do. They just choose not to pay it no more. And it is the best option for you and your family for tax reasons and legal reasons, which I'll talk to you about in a little while. So here's important considerations. I call this the road to disaster. The road to disaster starts with more debt. Let me explain to you what I mean by this. It is a vicious, ugly cycle. The reason it's an ugly, vicious cycle is for the following. I lose my income, my spouse gets laid off, they get rid of OT, something happens, I no longer can afford the mortgage, right? So my savings is depleted. That's the first thing I do to keep the house, right? Then I go ask for private loans, maybe from friends, buddies, whoever. I go ask for credit. I use my credit cards. You know, I'd rather not lose the house. I'd rather pay 20% interest. And then after all that happens, what happens? You still lose the home. And the reason this is because it's emotional. You're holding on. You're trying to do everything you can. And I'm here to tell you that that's an ugly cycle you don't want. If you know upfront your facts, if you know upfront what your options are, and here at Pro One Investments, we're great at giving you that. At least before you go down that cycle, you know. Look, yes, you could do this, but at the end of the day, you still can't afford the house. It's an income issue. So these other things, you're just making it worse. So just something to consider. So now there's tax liabilities, of course, that go with this. And this is huge, okay? Tax breaks have been extended through 2014. What that means is if the IRS is saying if you own a primary residence and you short sell it this calendar year, you don't have to pay income taxes on the loss. And let me explain to you what that means. If I own a house for $200,000, I owe $200,000 on it, right? And it's only worth $100,000, and I short sell it for $100,000. I'm upside down $100,000, and that bank lost $100,000. I get a 1099 that I have to pay taxes on. Now, if it's my primary residence, I don't have to pay taxes on it. But if it's a rental or second, third, or more home, I do. So you imagine if you made $50,000 and now you get a 1099 on $100,000, now you got to pay tax on $150,000. Well, that's going to be the reality. It could be the reality next year because all intents and purposes, everything points to one thing. They're not going to extend it past this calendar year. So be prepared. You're going to want to, if you're considering it, you're going to want to do it this year. If not, you are going to get killed on the taxes. All right. So what are some financial liabilities I need to consider? Most of you have second liens on your property. If you do a short sale, part of the process is you have to negotiate with a second. They usually get something out of it, but they go away. It's wiped off, and that's what you want. You want to be wiped off. Judicial versus a non-judicial state. We're in a non-judicial state. What that means is there are states where the minute they foreclose on you, they can go after you for the difference. So for the example I used earlier, where I was upside down $100,000 and that was the loss, they could literally immediately file liens and go after me for $100,000 because I owe that money, right? Well, in California, it's not like that. They actually have to take you to court, and they actually have to win. So can you imagine everybody in the state being taken, who's lost their house, being taken to court? It's not going to happen. So what happens is this is why short sales are so relevant in our industry here, in our territory, in the state of California, because they don't want to have to deal with all that. And more importantly, when it's a short sale, when it's done, it's done. If you do a loan modification, you're still on the hook. 2 years down the road, if you lose the house, how much money did you still pay into it? If you do a foreclosure, the minute they take your house, you still owe that money. They're still going to come after you for it, right? If you do a short sale, it's done. If you were to close on a short sale today, all the banks are pretty much cleaning their hands and saying, we're done. You no longer owe us. It's clean. Now, it's still going to affect your credit, but that's a whole different animal. But you are done. Credit issues. Well, I short sold and I no longer own the money, but it will reflect on my credit. Now, it is a lot more important that it reflects as a short sale versus a foreclosure. You cannot get financing if you had a foreclosure for 5 years. If you do a short sale, it's 3 years. So that's a 2-year difference, and a lot can happen in 2 years. And 3 years are going to go by like this, let me tell you. So you want to do a short sale. It also benefits your credit. Okay, so here's some important considerations. And I put on their banks for liars. Kind of harsh, but kind of the reality. A lot of people ask about this HOFA program. The HOFA program is a program that was created, the Home Affordable Assistance Program. And what this program is, it was to help you go through a loan modification, short sale process. It's a nonprofit. The problem is HOFA program was funded by the banks. So are you going to bite the hand that feeds you? No, you're not. What these people do is for free, they will help you fill out all the paperwork and submit everything to the banks. But here's the problem. The banks still have to agree to it. So at the end of the day, they're helping you go through the process, but the bank has a final say. There's not much there. Obama had a bunch of programs where they try to give financial incentives to the banks to do things, but at the end of the day, the bank has all the power. It's their money. You owe it to them, so your hands are tied. Loan modification is a tool. This is harsh but true. What happens is if I'm a bank and I own 10,000 loans, I have 10,000 loans that are behind. If I was to foreclose on all of them at the same time, what would happen? I'd go broke. So I got to stagger them. And by staggering them, what happens is that it gives them time to take losses quarterly, yearly. And what's a good tool to use that? Loan modifications. Loan modifications. So that's the situation, you know, and it's one of those things that it's the reality. That wasn't what it was meant for, but it's more the reality of what's going on. Of course, they won't come out and say that. I have no problem saying that. You know, I'm in the industry, but it's something you need to know. And fewer banks have more power. What happened these last few years? Countrywide went out. Bank of America took over Countrywide. Wells Fargo and Chase took over other ones. So everybody got bigger. So these banks got bigger and bigger and bigger. So there's fewer banks that have more power. So when it comes to lending in the future, they're going to have more power to what they can do. And that's not necessarily a good thing for us guys. So it's time to start buying your next home. It starts today. Today you need to make a decision. What are my options? Am I going to do this? If you're going to do it, you need to start now. An average short sale at the least will take 3 months. At the most, 2 years. And if you want to avoid paying taxes next year, you need to make sure you start now. It's really important. Get your options. Put it on the market. If you got an offer tomorrow on your house to do a short sale, you might not close for November, December, and you don't want to pay those taxes. So it starts now. Give us a call. Send us an email. Talk to anybody. Make sure that you get all the information you need to make this educated decision. Now, we have these webinars every month, and the whole point is for people to have the luxury of sitting in their home and hearing us and seeing us, and then giving us a call so we can talk about their individual situation. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You know what? A lot of people ask me, well, how do you get paid? Well, if we're able to do a short sale, if that's your best option and we do a short sale, the banks pay us a commission. That doesn't pay you. You can't pay us a commission because you're upside down. You know, we'll give you all your options and go from there. And if, you know, we think that there's better options out there, we'll absolutely 100% let you know. But you've got to get educated. You need the facts. We're going to be holding weekly, we'll be sending weekly links to our website, www.pro1shortsale.com. That's www.pro1shortsale.com. And what that does is that we're going to weekly videos on like credit and foreclosure and short sales that are given more specific. It's too much to go into in half an hour. I don't want to take everybody's time. But these videos will probably be between 3 to 5 minutes at the most. And they're going to talk specifically about that one thing. It'll give you a lot more information. So that's what we're going to be doing. So this brings us to the end of our webinar. I want to thank you so much for giving us 30 minutes of your time. I'm going to open up to Q&A. And I only have one question that I can see. And the question is, if I own my home and I have equity, okay, okay, I see what they're saying. What they're saying is, if you own a home and you have equity, for example, your house is worth $200 and you owe $195. Do you need to do a short sale? Well, that's a great question. Here's the reason why. The first answer is no, you don't, because you have $5,000 equity. But you got to pay title, escrow, property taxes, commissions. Add all that in there, and all of a sudden you are upside down. So now it is a short sale. So these are things we need to sit down and go over with you. And who asked this question? This was, I think, Ron that asked this question. So yes, Ron, to answer your question is, yeah, it looks like you do have equity. It isn't a short sale. But if you were to pay commissions, title, escrow, and everything, guess what? You're upside down now. And that is a short sale. That is the definition of a short sale. So just kind of an FYI on that. We got to be really careful with that. So let's see. Is there any other questions? I don't see. I know I already saw a few people drop off. Perfect. I want to thank you so much for the 30 minutes. I want to thank you for your time. We are going to be posting this video tomorrow on our website, pro1shortsale.com. That's pro1shortsale.com. If you want to go back, feel free to give us, ask us any questions. You definitely, if you've seen this video, you have access to our email, our phone numbers. Again, my name is Frank. I thank you so much for your time. And here at Pro One Investments, we welcome any questions you might have, and God bless.